I appreciate you all being here today, giving me a little bit of time in your sunny day. You could be doing something else. No, it ain't about you. I probably could be doing something else. Yeah, that's it. I could be doing something else, like grades or something. But no. I'm going to go with my podcast. I'm going to have to sacrifice. It got to happen. It got to happen. So, the thing about the sacrifice part, I was hearing that this morning, and I'm like, Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus. I started to just keep going and say less about it. But no, I had to, girl, listen, I had to say it, not for you, but for me, so that I can contract myself to the word that I heard and the next place where I'm gonna go. I could have just heard it for myself and just lived happily ever after, but that's not how that works. Because you can easily be in the corner and hear God, and nobody can check you when you don't do it, or when you don't obey, or when you don't follow through, and nobody can check you. It is so easy to do, but I don't want to fall for that. So I said, okay, so let me put what the word that I heard into action and sacrifice my time, because I was going to do something else. And I got to say this, and then there's 2 or 3 more other steps that I utilize when I do a podcast. That means I have to do a podcast. I have to write it, and so now I'm gonna have to do a post on my website, because I have to write a complete article. See, every time and this is the thing, every time I do one thing, I force the one thing to beget 2 more things. It's a whole principle. I don't even know what it's called. It's just me. It's what my sacrifice. If I do one thing, that one thing has to turn into something else. So for instance, and I'm gonna get to the lesson. So if you do a live, that principle that you learn, you're supposed to turn that principle into something else, or it's not a seed. So you have to determine what sacrifice you're gonna have to make, and the sacrifice is not what bad need to happen. Is what means of exchange do you need to exchange? What value or what you need to let go in order to be able to take that live a step further. So there's a sacrifice that has to be made, even if that means the sacrifice is, that means I'm not going to be able to be. You can give yourself 30 minutes to an hour. You can say, I'm going to cut out social media for an hour after I do a live, and write the live details down into a form of a chapter of a book. You see how that happens like that? So you can easily, because God is giving us information. God is not withholding anything from us. And God is giving us information for not just our now, but our next. We're never thinking that God is giving us information for our next in our now. And so if you believe that, then whatever you're doing now turns it also into your next. So it's like you get a degree in lymphatic, but you do nothing with it. What was the purpose of going to school and learning if you're not going to take it to the next? It's the same thing. So whatever God gives us, we have to decide what we're going to do next with that information. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I just gave it to you, ma'am. Right. You welcome. I mean, that's because it's going to keep coming. The more you respond to it, the more it's going to come, and the more you have. So if he says he wants to increase your borders, this is how he increase them. He don't just give you a whole border and a new border with more stuff. No, he can gradually gives you more, and you continue to expand. The more he give you and you do something with it, you add to yourself by default. And then he's going to keep giving you more because you're doing something with it. Then he's going to keep giving you more because you're doing something with it. Then he's going to keep giving you more because you're doing something with it. And it keeps going so on and so on until you get to a point where you're self-sufficient and you will be able to pull from what you have, because it creates content and insight, because he's continuing to give you more. And the more you do with it, the more you contracting yourself to that word, and it becomes part of your being. Then you start becoming it, because you're not just hearing it. It's like, oh, that was good. No, you're hearing it, you're consuming it, you're eating it, and you're becoming it by default. And it becomes your next language, and your language changes. Your attitude changes, your move forward changes, how you move forward, how you believe, how your faith level changes. You don't change your faith level just to change it. It's how you respond to God that changes your faith level by default. If your faith level is low, that means you don't obey God much. It's a real sign. Low level faith means you don't obey God much at all. Because faith normally was going to by default happen no matter what. The more you obey God, the more you hear him. That's obedience too. God is not always telling you to run across the street. It's the subtle obediences that creates great faith. Because the subtle obediences is like notes that you're taking from God, that you have the ability to write down and have for your own personal life notebook. And you can refer to it as much as you want. But if you don't write any notes and you're just sitting in the classroom, it's like you're not going to remember nothing I said. That's what God is saying. You're not going to remember nothing I said because you're not even writing it down. You're not making it important. You're not rereading it. You're not reviewing it. You're not ingesting it. You're not. So then it's going to have to be repeated all over again.
Ingesting. That's so important.
That is brutal. It's brutal and true. You have to ingest it. That means, and I think ingesting for the most part is just taking it without really chewing it. It's just you're receiving it. You don't have time to like, hold on, let me chew it. You ain't got time to chew. You must ingest it. It was given by force, but you received it with the same power of force that it was given. Yeah, it's like, hold up. You ain't got time to talk. You don't get to talk. You don't get to talk though. You just receive. That's when that terminology, just receive it, is right there. Just receive it and become. Don't try to let me explain. It ain't time to explain. It's time to ingest. It's time to ingest and grow and allow yourself to expand. And if you can just submit yourself and submerge yourself to the ingestation, that's the submission. You just give yourself over to it. Just take me. Just take me where you want me to go. I'm down for it. And that's what submission feels like when you receive the ingestation easily. It's like, just let me have it. And you just let him give it to you. It sounds so, okay, so how does that work? You know what? You're not ready if you asking that question. But when you in that process or you in that space, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yes, whatever you have to sacrifice or give up in order to receive what God has for you is true sacrifice. And we usually know what we have to give up. We can figure out something. You got to give up something. You cannot have the same life and get more. So it's all good. So sacrifice is good. Lord, I thank you for the word today. Now we're going to get to this class.